Welcome back. We're back again here with Juaquin Loan Lodge with Making Regalia here in Concho, Oklahoma. We're actually on episode 7. This is a continuation of our jingle dress. And if you missed the last episode, that's going to be number 6, and you can catch that on catv47.com. That's where all our episodes are held. And if you want to go back there, check out the beadwork or any other things I've covered. That's where we're going to host all the shows. So, like I said, this is a continuation of our women's jingle dress. I'm actually making this again, like for my daughter, one of the most beautiful jingle dress dancers out there. She's 6 years old. She travels with me a lot, and I do a lot of her dresses now. And like we said, we're going to start doing kind of a traditional dress. It's full ribbon. So the bottom of the dress, we're going to stack ribbon on top of ribbon, and we're going to attach it to the top part of the shirt. And from there, we're going to go attach the jingles, and we should be done. Like I said, I got all our measurements the first episode. We've got the shirt done right here, what we're working with. And, I kind of showed you how to get the measurements as far as the top of the shoulder to the width of the dress and to the length and the shoulders and to the sleeves. Now, I did make a little augmentation. I know I mentioned first that I was going to make the sleeves a long sleeve and I was going to go 12 inches with the material. I've kind of changed it up, and I think I want to do some ribbon on the sleeves. I kind of do a little bit extra, kind of make it a little bit more flary, more colorful. I've got my first piece that I've worked with, and I'm going to show you how we're going to go step by step on how to attach the ribbon onto it. So when we finish, the bottom of the dress is going to look like this, and this is pretty eye-catching. This is very colorful. I like how it came out. Like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to stack ribbon on top of each, and we're going to go all the way up. And then when we go through this, when we actually tack this down, what I did is, if you can't really see it too well, but I actually used different color threads instead of keeping the same white one. This way, it correlates with all the colors and it kind of hides it, your thread marks. But if you see, all the colors are congruent. And I kind of went through the color sequence as far as black, blues, greens, and yellows, and all the way into the reds. And then I started over in pink, and then I went all the way up, and then I started black again. I kind of did this because, with blacks, it's going to bring out your other colors as far as the reds. I kind of wanted to do this, and hopefully what I want to get out of it is going to make the red colors pop a little bit, because you're working with darks, and you're going to kind of single out your reds. Because the top part's going to be black, but like I said, I'm going to try to single out these red colors and make them pop. So it's kind of the color coordination that I'm going to do. And going through it, like I said, we're going to attach this to the bottom. So, and like I said, from the top part of the dress to the bottom, we're going to go 33 inches. And we're also going to go kind of a silhouette cut. So from here, the bottom is going to be 19. And slowly, gradually, we're going to come up. And from here, I believe I got like 15 inches. So when we get this totally done, it'll just sit perfectly right at 15, like I said. And if you look, we could probably do, I think it's a little bit more than 33. But, we'll correlate it just perfectly when we attach it. So it'd be 33 inches, the width, and then we're done. And then from there, we're going to add our bias tape here and add our jingles here. Today we're going to work with heat bond heavy. I like working with the heavier stuff. I'm not going to be doing any stacking with material or designs, and so the heavy is going to work out perfectly for me. Like I said, in our past episodes, if you start to do applique work and you start to stack, you might want to use the lighter heat bond because it's going to start to gunk up your needle. But since we're only going to do the ribbon on top of each other, it's not really going to gunk on my needle, and I'm just going to go from here. And if you look, from here on the back piece, I've already heat bonded every one of these, and you can see the paper's still here. You can kind of hear it and whatnot, and that's cool. But like what we're going to do is here in a minute, we're going to take this paper off, and I'm actually going to attach cotton material right here. So you'll see I have my cotton material, and this is, my daughter won't feel any of like the lines or anything like that when I sew it in. It'll just cover all my thread work and whatnot, so That's kind of what the cotton material is going to be. And I'll have it on both sides of the panels, and then when we attach it, it should like work out perfectly. So getting started, like I said, we're going to heat bond each ribbon on top of each other, on top of the heat bond. But to correlate our measurements, I'm going to have to measure, like the bottom of the dress we said was going to be 19 inches from here to there. And the top part here, I believe, is 15. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our heat bond out, measure total 19 inches straight across, and then cut straight up, and then fold it over, find the center, and then mark it, and then what we're going to do is cut a diagonal cut to get to the 15. From there, we got our heat bond perfectly measured out, and if you look on the ends of this, I've actually got this at 5 inches. Kind of a flare, and once I do tack this down, I'll tack this down to each panel, and then these ribbons will actually flare out past the dress. It's kind of like something I do, and I've seen it on different other dresses and stuff. And it's a cool way because, once they actually start dancing and stuff, the ribbon starts to flare out, and it looks really pretty good. So from here on out, I'm going to take this up and move our little shirt. And here's our faithful heat bond that we work with all the time. And take our ruler. What we're going to do is look specifically 19 inches, mark here. And mark here. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can just get a couple tack marks. That's all I'm really doing is just getting like 19 inches here, 19 inches there. And then we put this so, kind of put on your tack marks, your 19 perfect, and just run it straight on up. So now you got 19 inches from here to there. And all you got to do is cut straight up. And there you go. So congruently, you got a pretty good square, 19 inches. And like I said, we're going to make this silhouette. So I'm going to go and actually make this cut here and here. And the easiest way that I know how to do it is to find the center. It's just to fold this over. Make sure each part is flush on both sides. Kind of run your hand down and bam, got the center. So you'll see I got a crease mark here. And if you want, you can do that or you can actually measure it out. It's up to you, it's whatever. Like I said, we're gonna go 15, so half of 15 is 7.5. Right there, 7.5, 7.5. I mark 15, I mark 15. And from there, just go to the very bottom. Make sure you get all the way to the corner. You got there, got your mark there. Do the same thing on the other side. Straight to the corner, to your tack mark. Okay, so now we got 19 to 15. Pretty simple. Just take your scissors. And there, cut that off. Now, if you mess up, with heat bond, it's cool because, it's just paper. You can always redo it over and over and over. Now, if you look, this is the bottom of the dress, 19 to 15. It correlates all the way up, and you have that bell kind of, that silhouette look. Now, you got to be real careful with working with this because all I'm going to do is place the ribbon here. I'm going to measure like 5 inches off for the flare. From here, I'm going to like slowly iron it on. I don't want to permanently iron it on because what you're going to do is as soon as you start tacking more ribbon, you're going to be going over it with the iron again, and you don't have to really worry about tacking it down perfect the first time. So measure 5 inches here, 5 inches here after I iron it, and then I'll cut it. Working with some of these ribbons, you'll learn that the satin ones, they'll start to shrink as soon as they start to feel heat. Now, I've already got my color sequence. I'm going to make it just like my last template, my last plate. And so I'm going to go black to blue to lighter blues all the way to greens. Kind of correspond with the same colors, just going back. So I'm just going to make the same panel over again. And like I said, we just barely want to just heat bond this first part because, once you start adding more, you're going to keep running your iron over and over it. and it'll actually iron the actual bottom pieces that you've already previously done perfectly. So working with ribbon, you know, I get these, cool part is I usually get these at Hobby Lobby. This kind of size that we're working with, it is a 7x8 and like width, and then I think, you know, like you can get this at dollar store, at Hobby Lobby, and sometimes they do have half price sales, and I usually like to hit those up. But for this like spool around right now, I think it was like $3.99. So total, I think this dress right here costs probably about 30 bucks to make. But like I said, we're gonna go ahead and iron this on the very bottom. I'm gonna measure like 5 inches past the dress, and that'll be for my flare. And all we're gonna do is just gently tack it down to the bottom. You don't have to, you know, like permanently tack it down or get it perfectly. And you gotta watch it. You don't want to get too close to this glue, because then you'll gunk up your iron. And then after that, you know, you have glue on your clothes if you try to iron your clothes and stuff like that. So I want to get close as I can, but you know, I'm not trying to get perfect right off the bat. I just wanted to set and just attack it. Here in a minute, you know, I'm going to permanently get that glue really good on there. But right now I'm just trying to tack it in. So I'm just going to measure, well, I'm going to iron this last part real quick, and then I'll measure and cut. Because like I said, sometimes this ribbon likes to shrink. This satin, this black satin's pretty good. It doesn't really like to shrink. But I've got a gold metallic which will shrink, and you can actually watch it shrink as soon as I start to iron it. So there, 5 inches. You know, it doesn't have to be exact. It's just kind of something I do. So we got the first one down. Next color, we're gonna go with the dark blue. I like to put masking tape on this so it doesn't really run all over my house. So go there, gotta measure 5 inches out from the dress. And you see, you know, once I do this, when I measure up, this will actually start to almost make the bell shape too, like the ribbons. So what I'll do, as you see, is I'm actually putting the ribbon right next to the other one. And that way, you know, like when I do my seam, you won't really see that too much, and you don't want to really too much of a gap. You just want to get them touching close as possible. This is the same thing we're going to do for all the colors, going back and forth. Like I said, you know, you want to get it perfect, you just want to get it tacked down where it'll hold itself. Okay, there. And you see, like the first cuts of my ribbon, I'm just cutting straight up. You know, I'm not really getting detailed. Here later on, I will cut like almost like a little Y into it. I do that because ribbon, of course, will fray. And if you leave it straight up and down, it'll fray. But if you cut it at an angle, or you cut like, you know, a little design into it, it usually will stay. A lot of people like to do that, or they'll like to take a lighter and burn it. That kind of takes a little bit of time, you know. I mean, it's kind of a thing for me to do a little design work into the ribbon. Kind of one more little extra thing I like to add. Make something look, you know, a little bit better off. Because like I said, you know, when you make regalia, you kind of want to put a lot of effort into it, because you never know. You know, my daughter might be using this dress, and you know, if it keeps and she takes care of it, or you know, like I might be able to pass it down to somebody else, like one of her cousins. And you always want to do a little extra, you know. You want to make these last a long time. So with powered television, you know, I actually like time warped here. You can see I've got all my ribbon ironed on. Going through the ribbon here, you can see all I did is iron one ribbon on top of the other one. And you see it's pretty fluent. There's no gaps on it, and that's kind of what you want to do, because you know, you want to keep it like parallel right next to the next one. And like I said, you know, you just want to get it tacked down where it's just firm. It's not going to lift up and whatnot. And here, what we're going to do is we're going to flip it on its other side, and we're going to continue iron it until all the glue is perfectly seated and stuff. So go here, and you can start to see the colors and stuff to come through. Once they start to protrude through, you know the glue is actually perfectly aligned and, you know, like all in there. And so we're going to take our iron, and now I don't have to mess up, and I don't have to worry about messing up. I can just run my iron back and forth, get all the air bubbles out when I need to. And you'll see like the colors will start to come out, and they'll look more dominant and whatnot from this side of the paper. And you'll see that's when you know like the glue is actually adhesing pretty good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sew this all together. What I'm going to do is gradually I'm going to use the zigzag design for all my sewing machine, and we're going to go from one side of the material to the next, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the cool part is, like I said before, is I'm actually going to hide my seam marks by using different colors of thread. And another cool trick that I like to do is if you're going to work with one of the ones in the middle, not so you can save time, you don't have to keep changing out your thread color. I'll go with this dark blue so I can actually go on this side and this side, and then I'll go light blue so I can go this side and this side. That kind of saves you a little bit of time so you don't actually have to continue changing out your thread. So, let's start sewing. I already got everything as far as my tension ready to go, my zigzags on, and all I got to do is just sew this up and down. And the idea of it is that I want to keep my zigzag and tack both sides of the ribbon. So I want to get some of the black and I want to get some of the blue all the way down. All right, we got that finished. And if you see, I've got on my tack mark, I've actually got the blue and the black all tacked down. So that way, you know, even without the glue on the back side, these ribbons are actually sewn together. So what I'm going to do is from here, I'm going to go and tack down every one of these. And I'm going to change out my threads so you don't actually see it. So I'm going to go through that now and finish that real quick.
If you have a question or comment for Joaquin, contact him at lonelodgecatv47@yahoo.com.
And we're back with the Power of Hollywood. Completed like all our sewing in like in a minute. Faster than any sewing I've ever done in my life. But this is how the finished product came out. Like you see, like I corresponded by using different color threads to match up the different ribbons. And another thing that I did is, if you look at the very edges of them, I cut them like, I made a little design, you know, I cut like a little like triangle out of them. Now, you know, like if you leave the thread straight up, if you just cut ribbon straight up, it'll tend to fray. I've always learned that, you know, if you cut any angles at it, it won't fray that much, and you know, that's kind of one of the things I do, and it kind of looks cool. Like if you look all the way through, you know, all the ribbons are cut the exact same way, and I don't know, it just makes it look kind of like a little design. You see I got both panels done, so I've got, if you could, you know, if you wanted to say I got the front and the back done. So this is going to be the bottom of the skirt. Both of them look exactly the same. So what we're going to do is now we're going to back them. I'm going to use a cheap cotton material because, you know, no one's going to see it and no one's going to worry about it. But, you know, at least my daughter won't feel the paper or any of like the actual like thread marks. This is paper, so all we've got to do is just take the paper off and the adhesive stays actually on the material. And then all I'm going to do after that is just iron the cotton on top of that. I'm not really going to worry about it too much. Like I said, this is just kind of a little something I do just to make it a little bit more comfortable for my daughter so she doesn't feel it. So if you see, I've only got the top and the bottom pieces that I'm actually taking off. I'm going to go ahead and leave this other paper on there. You know, I'm not going to really worry about it. You know, it doesn't really matter. As long as I get like kind of like something to fit onto it. So I got my cheap little cotton material I got at Walmart. I think you can get this for like, I don't know, like $1 a yard, something like that. You can find it in, you know, like the bins and stuff. And if you see, I've already got it cut to a rectangle shape. And it's kind of a trick that I do. I was like, realistically, I'm just going to lay this on here, iron it on both sides, and then I'm going to kind of fold it over, and I'm going to cut this like this angle cut. And I'm not really going to use any of like my pencils or anything. it's just kind of, I'm kind of eyeballing it, just gonna cut it. Because once I do tack it to the other piece, you're not gonna see any of this cotton. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make the bottom the congruent side. So I'm gonna pull this up so I can iron it. And put it right on the very line of it. I'm gonna iron it into the ribbon. And I'm not really going to worry about too much of the fringe. You can kind of see like the cotton's kind of overlapping the ribbon. Because later on what I might do is I'm probably going to hang some actual fringe off the bottom of it. Kind of a style like I've seen a lot of jingle dress dancers use. And kind of like gives the dress a little extra something something. And that is done. And like I said, I'm just going to eyeball this. It's not going to be anything perfect. Like I said, I'm just going to fold this over and look for like, you know, like my mark. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut this. Now you see it's perfectly like got the angle cut and it correlates with the paper underneath. Well, the line underneath. I'm going to do this to both sides. So I'm going to fold this over. Now this will help her out, you know, because when she starts dancing, she won't actually feel anything. Make it comfortable. And it kind of dresses up the back of the dress a little bit. I should actually turn this on the other side. And just going to get a little bit of the excess on the top. There we go. And that is ready to go. I'm going to do the other one, and after that we'll sew this onto the dress and we're almost home free. So now we're at the segment where we're going to attach the bottom part of our ribbon part to the top part of our shirt. The cool part is I'm going to show you a really neat trick. I'm going to heap on the back of these two ribbons, and then I'm going to heap on it on top of the shirt. This will give me placement and it'll actually hold the material down so I don't have to worry about it moving around when I sew. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to iron on this heap onto the very top two ribbons here. And I'm going to make a little notch mark. Like I said, sometimes I just eyeball this stuff just to get it, you know, like get speed into it. So I got my little tack marks. And this is going to be really fast because this doesn't have to be exact. And like I said, no one's really going to see this. But see, this will hold the actual bottom of the skirt down onto the shirt so it doesn't actually bounce around when we sew it in. You don't have to be exact. I'm just adding this on here. So we got our heap on. So like I say, heap on works wonders. You can pretty much do anything with heap on. Got a little excess here, just gonna cut it off. And no worries. So now we got something that'll hold this down when I tack it. We'll do the same on both sides. Now you see you have both the adhesives on both sides and we're ready to tack it onto the dress. So now what we're going to do is we're going to tack the top part of our shirt to the bottom part of our dress. One thing that we're going to have to do is you might have seen on this side, I want to get these ends perfect, well close to it as I can. So what I'm going to do is like if you see, I iron the edge of it and I kind of pushed it as far as I could so I get the most of it out of the extent of it. So what I want to do is I kind of want to place this and kind of push the material back and forth, and you want to start ironing it. That way, you know, it doesn't bunch up. All you're really doing is just ironing like the very edges of it. Okay, now you see this is perfectly flat and it's all the way at the very ends. Now all I've got to do now is just attach it to the next piece. And like I said, you know, from the top here to the bottom here, we're going to go 33 inches. So all I got to do is from here measure, let's see, 33. Come up some. 33 on that side. And bring this down a little bit. And we are perfectly at 33 on that side. Now you can also use the ribbon to kind of like as a measuring tip. You can kind of see if I got it kind of fluently on the black and the black. So it kind of looks like that's where I'm going to measure it. And that'll, keep the dress from going kind of sideways this way. That way it's perfectly straight across. And now since I've already taken off my adhesive, all I've got to do is just take my iron and run it over. This one's a little different because, like on the shirt, I sewed on the inside, so you can't really see the seam. This one though, I'm actually, I'm going to tack it on the outside, but that's how I'm going to put both of them together. But that way you won't see any of this marks or anything else. And then what we do is just line this up, kind of eyeballing it. This way I'm just going to make sure all the ribbons correlate and kind of fold on top of each other. And do my iron one more time. I think our dress is almost done. All we got to do now is add the jingles, cut out the neck, do the bias tape around the neck, and then finish up the sleeves. And I say we're almost ready to go powwow. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go with the straight stitch and go straight on down, tack it up here with another zigzag, and we're totally finished. So to recap, I got the dress totally sewn together. I haven't finished up the neck yet, but we're going to get to that in the next episode. As you can see, we've attached the bottom of the dress to the top of the dress. It's all one piece now. It came out pretty good, I like it a lot. There's, it's a little bit of things I got to clean up on it, Sometimes like you'll see rough edges and stuff like that. I like to take a lighter and just gently go over it, and that'll clean everything up. Even like the strings that you might see. I haven't totally cleaned it up, but as you see, it's totally attached. It's ready to go. We're almost finished with this. I'll be adding a zipper the next time, and then the next episode we're going to attach the jingles. Going into the new season of the powwow, hope to see you guys out there and having fun. See you on the powwow trail. Thanks again for watching, and I appreciate for everyone tuning in. Thank you. I hope.